Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heads Together. I am your host, Bonnie Low-Kramen, coming to you from my home office in Ponte Vedra, Florida, on this St. Patrick's Day, Wednesday, March 17th. And I am here with Jennifer Wilner. Hello, Jen.
Bonnie. Happy St. Patty's Day.
Well, thank you. We're all decked out in our green, and I think our speaker is too today, if I spotted her correctly. Well, welcome everybody to Heads Together during this Women's History Month. Women's History Month is important for many, many reasons. Those of you who know me know that I care a lot about gender issues in the workplace. And I see this program as a way to focus on and celebrate the women, what women are doing right now. I also think it's important to look at where women have been, where we are right now, and where we're headed. And as a part of that effort, I've invited onto this show some amazing women in this month of March. I want to welcome our viewers from around the world. Welcome, Melanie and Beth. Great to have you here with us. We love your comments and your questions about Women's History Month and for our guest today. So, Jen, thank you so much for all of your continued help. You are one of the powerful women I think of when I think about women in the world.
Likewise, it's my pleasure.
All right, well, why don't we get to it? Welcome. Oh, hi, Ruth Cardona. Lanny is here. Welcome from Pennsylvania. Oh, I love seeing all of your names. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Lynn. We're excited you're here to continue the series on Women's History Month. Let us get started with letting me introduce our guest for today, who reminded me that we've known each other for about 6 years. And it's been a fast 6 years. And wow, so much has happened. Her name is Vanessa Farino. She comes to us from Boston, where she is one of the busiest executive assistants I know. She's been an assistant for 13 years, but there's so many other things that Vanessa does. She is a public speaker. She's a community leader. She's a business consultant, corporate professional, an award-winning, multi-passionate entrepreneur. She was named by Boston Business Journal as in the article 40 under 40 and 30 under 30. I mean, every time she ages, she gets another article written about her. Vanessa's going to be featured in the new documentary that's coming out later in 2021 called Still Working 9 to 5. It's Not Funny Anymore. You know, it's the documentary based on the movie 9 to 5, which came out in the 80s. And I have a surprise for Vanessa when she comes on. Vanessa started her first company when she was 15 years old. And she's been a successful corporate executive ever since. She has, every time I speak to her, she's starting a new company. I mean, that's really the way it seems. And I'm not exaggerating. She's also the founder of Creative Admin and Creative Woman, which I love. She's in business with her mother. Vanessa's latest venture is called Creative Human, and she's disrupting the traditional way of thinking by promoting the idea that we are all creative and ever-evolving humans. Vanessa never has a shortage of exciting new ideas about how to disrupt what's going on in the world. And I've had the pleasure of meeting her family. I know her mother. I know her husband, Mike, and I know her brother. And she and her brother, Andres, have come to be the ultimate assistant, not once, but twice. And we keep on finding ways to come together. Please give a nice virtual welcome to Vanessa Farino.
Hi, Bonnie.
Very good. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much.
As you juggle your 20 balls in the air. So crazy. So you know what I want to tell you? I don't know that you know this. Were the first one to tell me about the documentary, Still Working 9 to 5. And the directors are coming on to the show. They'll be here with us next Wednesday.
So excited.
And they're going to show the trailer to the movie.
Yay.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
So great. So
That's
great.
amazing.
How smart of them to tap you and have you on the program. So in the film, welcome to everybody coming in from all over the world. And Vanessa, you can take a look. We've got Iowa in the house. We have from all over the United States and the world. So I know you really well, or I think I know you really well, but we've come up with some rapid fire questions to help the audience get to know you better. Are you game?
Absolutely.
Okay. Gaga or Jennifer Lopez?
J-Lo.
Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Duncan.
Ooh. Favorite TV show as a child?
Lamb Chop.
Which one?
Play Along. I think that's what it was called. Lamb Chop's Play Along.
Oh, okay.
No,
favorite vacation spot?
Puerto Rico.
Oh, I knew that. How many times have you been?
I was just there twice in the last 7 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, on Facebook, you post the most gorgeous pictures. I mean, it seems to me you've been, 50 times?
We go at least 4 times a year for the last 10 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Favorite dessert?
Creme brulee.
If you could have only one book on a desert island, what would it be?
Start with Why.
Wow, Simon Sinek. Great book, everybody, if you haven't already read it. Favorite app?
My favorite app is, I have quite a few, but right now my favorite one is Calm.
Calm.com.
Yeah.
They're all called, at B2A, we've been talking about Calm for 10 years. It's so interesting. And of course, now they're making television commercials about it, but it's been around for a really long time. Favorite movie?
I have to say it's Troy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I love knowing people's favorite movies. Favorite superhero?
Wonder Woman.
Yes. Favorite beverage?
Water with some sort of flavoring in there of fruits.
Last thing you binge watched?
Good Girls.
And last question, tell us one thing that's not on your LinkedIn profile.
I went to military school as an adolescent.
Oh. Wow.
That might explain a lot.
That is so interesting and so telling. How many years did you spend in military school?
Just under 2.
At what ages?
I was in 1st grade. Yeah.
Oh, in what city?
We were in my mother's country in Bolivia.
Bolivia. Okay. So how many languages do you speak?
3. English, Spanish, and Portuguese.
Gotcha. So you've been an EA in Boston 8 years, and you've started a number of professional organizations. I was there at the birth of BEA. At the time, that's what it was called. You've had many names and Boston Executive Assistants. Ever since I met you and your brother, and then your family, it's so clear how you are a young woman who dreams big. You seem fearless about marching straight into the unknown and exploring. What made you so fearless? Was it military school? Now that I had written that question like a week ago. Where does that come from?
I think that definitely comes from my mom always telling me I literally can do anything I put my mind to. And nowadays she's like, I probably should have watched out what I said and how many times I would tell you, because I believe that. And it's so interesting to see that, how words are so powerful.
Yeah.
And when that is ingrained within my soul, within, growing up in my household, within family and friends, I mean, I even tell that to my dog. I have a puppy and I'm like, you can do anything you put your mind to. And we're doing puppy training. And all of a sudden he looks at me and he starts doing what I want him to do. I really am grateful for that. And I know how difficult it must be for people who don't necessarily have those opportunities or words of affirmation growing up, because my mom came completely from a different scenario where she was told you can't do anything you want to do. Wow. So that's the power of that.
Interesting. Yeah. And now let's just get right to it, because in the last year, this has been such a crazy, insane time. And there certainly is a lot of talk about racism and discrimination. And as a Latina woman, on a backdrop of you hearing that you can do anything, did you get stopped along the way from racism, discrimination, any of that? Has that impacted you?
Yeah, I do remember one of the most impactful memories that I have growing up was I was one of maybe 2 Hispanic young girls growing up in actual classrooms up until I was in 6th grade. And in 4th grade, throughout mostly the whole school. So I didn't understand when I was like bringing lunch, to school and it looked different and I would get made fun of. And I didn't understand a lot of things. I didn't understand why my friends and, other students were going to Aruba for vacation. Like I didn't understand a lot, but I'm just like, whatever. But one of the most impactful memories I have, I was around 4th, 5th grade and we were doing career day. And the teacher asked me, Vanessa, you're next. What do you want to be when you grow up? And before I could say, lawyer, the girl who was sitting next to me said, do you want fries with that? And I turned around and I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, that's all you'll ever have to remember, because that's all that your people ever do. And that stuck with me. Mm-hmm. That stuck with me along with many other, through my corporate career or with personal, friendships and in life. But I'm very grateful that I live in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is one of not many states that are so, in my opinion, diverse and inclusive, even though we still do have a backbone and roots and foundation of, not necessarily being so inclusive.
Did that event, thank you for sharing that very powerful story. Did that event impact the way you have dealt with others?
Absolutely.
Has that made you hypersensitive to those kinds of behaviors?
Yes, because I realized at a young age that I was equipped with a little bit more of a thicker skin than other people. And as you grow up, you see how these groups start happening, right? People start bullying and workplace, situations and things like that. And I was always the person to stand up for people. And I would say, don't do that. Like, why are you saying that? And it would be like, well, you normally don't see people do that. You know what I mean? You normally people see put their head down and walk away. So that definitely has impacted me. But I always look at things that people who are saying those things are hurting. I remember I also took a psychology class within high school, which changed my life. There's a psychology behind everything and why people react and do certain things.
Yeah.
And I was like, why don't they teach this in middle school? Because that helped me a lot. I remember I used to sit with 4 other Hispanic young ladies in the class way back who nobody would ever talk to. And, people who I would normally talk to would sit in the front and they would say, why do you sit with them? I said, because nobody else wants to. I'm going to sit with them. That's one of the things that I've incorporated through life. I always try to use words that are welcoming. You can sit with us. I want to be with the people in the back. I want to be with people in the corner who don't feel like they have confidence or they've never been accepted. or they felt like they've been the black sheep. That's okay. Those are my people.
Yeah, there are many reasons we're so close, and that is one of them. I just want to take a pause to welcome everyone on the show today. And if you have any comments about what Vanessa is sharing, please put them in the chat, and Jen from behind the scenes will be moderating those comments. Do you feel, Vanessa, that in your career that you've been ever prejudged? Have people made assumptions about you as a Latina woman about whatever? You were judged by appearance, judged by intellect, judged by the role you hold as an executive assistant?
Absolutely. I, for the most part, have been really fortunate, but have also worked really hard to get the positions and, the places that I've been. And most of the time, I have always been at least the youngest employee in companies, at least by 10 years.
Wow.
Most of the time at the beginning of my career, I was also, the only Hispanic woman. And when I had, places to sit at the table where normally you had men that happened to be white, within the office, there would be rumors of why is there a white Hispanic Latina woman sitting at the table that's younger, at least with these executive men, I'll see suites, at least 25 years. And when I reference 10 years of an age difference, we're talking about the entire company, right? So there always had been that pushover of people not being welcoming in that. And it's been tough, but I'm also very grateful to the executives that I've worked with who have mentored me and helped me lay a really solid foundation for my career to stand up for myself and ask the right questions and to allow me to be curious and have that autonomy with them.
Can you share a few tips or ideas, like if any of our listeners are in that situation where, because we've heard that expression a lot, often, I'm the only one of the only Black, the only Asian, the only woman, the youngest, the only.
Yeah.
What if they're the only? How do you find your way to assert yourself where, I'm a big fan of how Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, fight for what you believe in, but do it in a way that lead others to join you.
Yes.
So
I think one of the things that has always definitely worked in my advantage, what I've learned is just observe what these C-suite people are doing. Observe. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? Understand what type of questions they're asking, understand what type of topics are important to them, understand everything about them, absorb that information so you're able to connect with them on a personal level to start building trust, for them to realize that, oh, this person has a voice. And as time goes on, there's always ways to find where things start slipping through the cracks where you can say, excuse me, I have a suggestion, or I see that this might not be happening, according to agenda. I want to bring this to someone's attention. And yes, there will be pushback. And yes, people might not pay attention to you, but you have to find the confidence just to send an email, continuously say, follow up and do things like that. And you will find that there are people who want to support and help. And if you start, say there's 10 people in the room and you build the trust of 3, those 3 people will know when you want to say something in the room, and they will say, I think Vanessa wanted to say something. And that's how you start getting sort of that, trust from people. And I would recommend that, but I think it's definitely starts with confidence, and it's not something that you wake up every day and it's like, oh, hi, confidence. There you are. I know a lot of people lack that. I personally lack that. It's just, you have to make sure you're constantly pouring in your cup to make sure that you're able to show up for yourself. And I think generally, if we look back at the history of women, just in general, we are known to not be pouring in our cup, but instead of the cup of others.
Right.
So I think that's really important in society to start changing that way of thinking, from getting up in the morning. How are you showing up for yourself? What does that mean for you? Most importantly, why? not because your friend is doing it, not because your neighbor. Like, does it truly shake your core? If it shakes your core, other people are going to be able to resonate with you and see that and inspire them.
So it's interesting that you say you lacked confidence.
Yes.
That's surprising. Nora's coming to us from Hawaii. Hi, Nora. And establishing and building those relationships are as necessary as the air we breathe if we are to continue to develop and thrive. We need support from women too, though, right?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Absolutely. 100%.
To have the trust of our leaders, but how do you get it from women? You were named 30 under 30 as one of the 40 under 40. So many kudos you've had come your way, and you've worked really hard for it. Can you share with us what was the reaction from women and what was the reaction from men about all of that?
I have to say, when there are big milestone recognitions personally or professionally for me, I have men who are the most supportive and women who are not. And I think at the beginning that was something that I thought, oh, just brush it off. But it constantly, continuously becomes a trend. And there are times where I'm just like, why wasn't I just born a man? Like, why is this so difficult?
Interesting. I'd really like to talk about that some more, because and it's the reason I asked you, because I didn't know the answer. We didn't actually even talk about this beforehand, but this is a phenomenon and I've written articles about how women behave with each other in the workplace. And on this call today, I've seen mostly female names. I think in Women's History Month, if we don't talk about this, how are we ever going to fix it? And it seems to me that we have, there's that photograph on the internet that keeps getting repeated about, let us fix each other's crowns. Yeah. Let us support one another's achievements. That to say congratulations to you on that achievement does not diminish anybody else. That we can all raise up if we can support and celebrate each other's successes. What's your theory on why that isn't happening, and what can we do? What can we actually do as women to change things if we want it to be changed?
Right. I actually bring this up a few times vaguely, but this is definitely something that I will be talking about in for the remainder of the year. That's really important. Two things. One, again, the history of women, our survival. If you look back into forever, the 1600, early 1900s, we were known to have to marry to survive or bring our families out of poverty. And just going to a quick example, if you think about the Titanic and Rose and her mom, the pressure that her mom puts on Rose to get married to someone that she does not care for. How many times have women have been in those situations throughout their life for survival mode? And I think what my point is that women, for the history of women, we've been in survival mode for a very long time.
Yeah.
We don't take the moment to recognize the actual history of our survival mode. So we were physically beating up on each other of who was going to marry who or who was going to do what back in the day. But I'm thankful for our ancestors, who have gone through really hard situations and scenarios in life. We're no longer there, and we have the opportunity now. And we can't, take advantage of that, because to me, I look like that's privilege. We don't want to feel privileged. We have a moment to act in time and society and make a change. We don't want to be 40 years in advance now and said, oh, look at us. We just had our hands crossed. Because for the first time, women, could get a credit card, and buy a home and have a mortgage and get divorced. Just 40, 50 years ago, that wasn't even allowed. Do we actually understand the history of women and how that has changed and evolved throughout time? And I think that is super important. So I'm going to dedicate the rest of this year to talk about that. And number two, have we even realized how business has treated women just with advertising? and the sexism in advertisement, have we seen those? I'm going to be publishing those in the next couple of months.
Wow.
So I think it's just important for people to just see it, acknowledge it. You know, there's a lot of generations that might have forgotten, or generations who have never even seen it.
I mean, there's something called the pink tax, the idea that female products designed for women, you know, shavers, for example, are more expensive than the products made for men. And that they refer to that as the pink tax. We know there's a wage gap. I'm delighted to hear you say you're going to be dedicating the rest of the year, probably and beyond, to exposing what is really going on. And those of you who know me well know that I know that the future for women is very much tied to the economy and to money, to the money that women earn. That to be strapped for money is hindering our ability to speak our minds, because we meet women all the time who say, I can't speak up. I'm going to lose my job, and I'm a single mom, and I'm supporting kids, and I can't take the chance. Whereas if someone is paid fairly and they have a cushion and they're not living necessarily paycheck to paycheck, that enables women to have the freedom to say, you know what, I have to stand up here and say what's on my mind. And worst case scenario, if they lose their job, it's like they're not going to be out on the street. Money has so much to do with our future. Melanie had an interesting comment about agreeing with you. Jen, if you can put Melanie's comment that it's a competitive nature in women that unfortunately is created in the workplace for women to stand out in corporate America, to stand out to our male counterpart. It is deeply socialized that we are competitive with one another. So I love the idea that here on Heads Together, we can acknowledge that that really is not working.
No, it does not work at all. I look at it more as think about how everybody has their own DNA. Can't replicate it no matter how much you want to. That's everybody's personal life and their own journey. It's kind of silly and childish if you look at it from an outsider perspective. And ultimately, if you want to compare to those who have financial freedom, that they're definitely not doing that. So that they're uplifting each other and recommending each other for a job that they might have passed on or didn't want, or investments, or, you know, whatever that might be.
Absolutely. Melissa, Jen, if you can put up Melissa's comment. Women can be the worst. It seems like jealousy is so rampant. Maybe it is competitive nature. Not sure. We need to band together and not undercut each other. What's your comment about that, Vanessa?
It's interesting when I hear the word jealousy or envious, because I also didn't understand that growing up until maybe my early 20s. I heard that at work. Oh, she's just jealous. You never hear a man say that.
No.
And it's just saying, I'm like when you say, oh, a woman CEO or a working mom, it's like, what about a working dad or a male CEO?
Right.
Thinking about those perspectives, I think culturally, it's just input within us, right? It's like society creates that venom. So the more we talk about it, the more it lingers, the more energy we give to it. So whenever I hear those conversations, I try to stir or walk away. You know, I think the less energy we put when it comes to those things, you know, the less people will talk about it and the more we will focus on other things.
Yeah, totally agree. You know, I was on a webinar this morning, and the female executive said that she believes we all have the opportunity every single day to be a role model for the kind of behaviors that we want to see with each other, to give people shout outs on social media. And when you see, you know, at some point, Vanessa's probably going to be in that article, 50 under 50, to choose to celebrate that men do that all the time. There are certain behaviors we could really learn from men. Now, I have a son, and please know that some of the danger of having, you know, conversations about women during Women's History Month is that some might think like, oh, this is men bashing, or this is not women versus men at all.
We need both.
We absolutely need both. And we need, step one is to understand what the issues are in play. And absolutely the solutions are very much about collaboration with the men who are, leaders in companies and our colleagues to understand why it makes sense to bridge and to not do this anymore. We've got this pandemic going. We've got a workplace that's in turmoil and so volatile right now. The last thing we need is to do this.
Right.
Heard an interview with Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo, and she was saying that what she's worried about as we look into these next months are two cultures getting created: the work from home people and the people who are coming into the office. And so, that reminds me of working moms versus the mom or the women in the workplace who don't have children, like historically that kind of conflict.
Which already exists, I believe. There's always the bastion of, I'm a mom, you're not, you'll never understand, and there's the, you don't know if someone has difficulties or choose otherwise for whatever reasons. Yeah. I think, it's definitely something that's also important to talk about. It's
a complex landscape. So I think you've got plenty to talk about for the remainder of the year and beyond. We have so many assistants on the call, Vanessa. As you look ahead, into the workplace, what are you excited about and what are you worried about?
I'm really excited to see that companies are finally realizing that, in my opinion, there's a difference between HR and people and culture, as in people and culture being one thing and HR being another. In my opinion, people and culture is the future, where we are taking care of, being inclusive within the workplace, being transparent, putting accountability on our leaders to make really great companies.
Yeah.
And then I see that same scenario where you're saying the people who work remotely versus virtually, and it's fine if you have a preference and whatnot, but I think we have to remind people we're all human. At the end of the day, we're all going to leave at one point or another this planet, and we cannot sit here and fight for power or fight for things that don't really matter in the long term. My opinion is everybody should be focused on what legacy they're going to leave. And that doesn't mean you have to be a celebrity or a famous actor, right? We all have our own social citizen responsibility in thinking about the planet and as our neighbors and our family and our friends and the type of life that we want to live and the boundaries that we need to set present within ourselves today. And I'm worried that boundaries and all of those type of things are there's too many gray areas right now, and that will all affect people's mental health in the long term.
Mental health is a big one. There's a lot of energy and attention being paid to the idea that we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what this pandemic has done to the mental health of our society. I mean, one of the data points is that in the last year, 5 million women have left the workforce because of various reasons. We're going to wrap up in just a couple of minutes, but I must ask, because this is Women's History Month, there's been a lot of attention in the news lately about sexual harassment and workplace bullying, all of which comes under the umbrella of abuse of power.
Correct.
I think that's safe to say. Can you talk us through your point of view on this, and what can assistants do who are, fortunately, there seems to be a lot of increased accountability happening. It's on the front pages. What's your take on this? Because women are the primary targets of these behaviors.
There are a lot of multiple things that come to my mind. One, I want to share that I've actually left a job because I saw my coworker go through this twice. and I brought it up to leaders and nobody did anything about it. And I said, this goes against my human values. I cannot sit here and watch this happen.
You said those sentences?
Oh yeah, I said that to the C-suite. I said those. I think it's important to find words with grace and be professional and respectful and say, Bonnie has taught us. I've put much thought into this. So it looks like you're providing feedback and not being afraid of speaking. You have to say, whether you're leaving a job or you see something, you have to speak up, document it some way, one or another, because we talk about it so much, but until you're actually in that moment, you're not realizing how it's affecting, and it's already happening. And once we don't actually take, people don't take repercussions on the things that are happening, it's going to happen times 12, times 20, times 30, times 50. That's how we got where we are today because of the history of that, right? I think it's really important, once again, to focus on being, as financially free as you can, because you can't stop the world from being the world.
Right.
And that when, unfortunately, you come through a scenario like that, I hope people don't go through that. You have the opportunity to seek legal advice, because there is a difference between an attorney that represents the companies and the attorneys that represent employees, right? And feel protected. Everybody should always have their own attorney and always advocating for themselves and share information with their peers, and don't be ashamed,
Yeah.
But also never stay in the victim mentality, because everybody should be able to live life happy, and be able to move on. But it doesn't just take holding things in. You have to release it and let it go. And it does take time, but finding ways to do that.
We need our mentors. And so as we wrap up, Vanessa, what are you are involved in so many new initiatives. What can our listeners get involved in that you are working on? Is there, tell us.
Okay. So we have Creative Human, which is, the whole brand exists because we're told at a very young age, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think that's an awful question to ask people at a very young age, when I think the brain doesn't even finish developing until our mid-20s.
Right.
And I think it's so important that we realize that we have so many different gifts, with the ones that we're born and we develop as we mature in life and go through different journeys that we all go through. And we should not be consumed in sitting in a box, right? We're told, think outside the box, and how many times we act outside the box and we get penalized. And I wanted to create a brand that supported humans, right? Stop putting labels on people, women, men, all these different scenarios, because I want to be able to bring people together. We're humans, and we're ever evolving creative people. And that doesn't matter if you're doing spreadsheets all day or if you're an actual artist and you're able to be creative no matter what it is that you're doing. Through that brand, we have a podcast where we're sharing stories, about the blood, sweat, and tears in a very positive and inspiring way. How many times have you been in a situation and you're crying and you might be, on someone's, crying on someone's shoulder, and they'll say, we'll be laughing about this one day because this is teaching us something. And that's what the podcast is about, really showing motivation and inspiration. Everybody goes through this stuff, but we don't talk about that, the blood, sweat, and tears. And most importantly, being able to show people how to pay it forward, which is really important to me. So that's the podcast. And we also have our events. Currently right now, we are doing virtual events quarterly. And I will be launching a mastermind within the next couple of months. It's actually called the Six Figure Mastermind. And it's very important for me to be able to support small business owners along with other people who have just creative and personal ideas. And that's what we do there, with along of many other things that we'll be launching. But we also have the Creative Human Shop. And that is a duo, a mother-daughter duo that I have with my mom, that we do corporate gifting. We call it Modern Gifting with Purpose, where we partner with small businesses within the country. And we also plant a tree for every box that is sold to thank the, Mother Earth for letting us be here.
You must just come up with this 2 a.m. You're like, I have another idea. Vanessa Farino, thank you for being here with us. And thank you for being such a positive role model for what a young Latina woman entrepreneur looks like and sounds like.
Thank you
and
so much.
asserts like. You can't be it if you can't see it. So we need to celebrate our role models who are doing big things in the world and shaking things up and disrupting. We love it. I hope that you will visit Creative Human and learn how you can get involved in listening to the podcast and with all the efforts that Vanessa is involved with, including seeing her in the documentary, Still Working 9 to 5, which is so amazingly cool. Please join us next week when we will have the directors of Still Working 9 to 5 here on Heads Together. Went Stephanie Hand. Oh, the bully was finally fired. How many stories have we heard about how a bully finally gets fired, but after how much time?
Right.
Like, that's my point at Be the Ultimate Assistant always is, I'm not even a fan of firing right away. How about we coach people?
Yes. Because they're going on the street for someone else to recruit.
Absolutely. If you just fire a bully, they're just going to go on and get a job at another company and do exactly the same thing without coaching. Mm-hmm. So we need to slow it down, be less harsh on each other as women, and be understanding that everybody comes to the table with their own history and, not necessarily having had the best role models for leaders. Exactly. I hope everyone will check out betheultimateassistant.com. In the free resources, there's a whole big packet on workplace bullying if you're interested in needing that. We hope you'll consider coming to Be the Ultimate Assistant, either live or virtually or on demand. We have lowered our prices for starting now for APW week and month. Jen Wilner, thank you so much for your help from behind the scenes. Please stay in touch with Vanessa. And of course, if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, do that as well. Rock on. We're going to continue with Women's History Month, talking about our ways to move forward in a positive way, in collaboration with each other and with the men. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Vanessa Farino.